quiz. I now recognize Chairman Luetkemeyer from the great state of Missouri for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank all of you for being here today, especially our small business owners for taking time away from your businesses. One of the things that concerns me is that since President Biden took office, 677 final rules have passed. This has cost American businesses $430.5 billion. Now, this figure is come up with by adding the cost. Every time they do a rule, the government's supposed to also put a cost to implementing of that rule. So this isn't my number. This isn't the chairman's number. This is the government agency's number themselves when they initiate a rule. $430 billion in a little over 2.5 years. More than 215 million hours of paperwork. In fact, it's projected President Biden's current regulatory framework will cost Americans $1.5 trillion over the next decade. And Mr. Burgos, you talked about this in your testimony with regards to the cost of continuing to comply, continuing to go through the rigmarole of trying to be compliant with the new rules and regulations and moving of the goalposts and moving targets that they're continuing to go after. Mr. Knapp talked about the benefits of these rules and regulations. There may be some, but when you weigh all this, your testimony tells me that there's not a lot of benefits to some of this stuff if you're going to keep moving the goalposts on folks. Would you like to comment on that?
I would, and thank you very much. It's impossible for a small business to comply when the regulations are constantly being changed. And I would actually respectfully say that the cost to small business and business in general is much, much higher. For example, for the Department of Labor's newest revisions to the Davis-Bacon related acts, they estimate it's going to cost $55 for a business to comply. So if you take that number just as an example, and what they say is essentially it's 5 hours of a human resource person to read the 800 pages of documentation.
Speed reader, huh?
That's correct. So it would take you 16 plus hours if you read at a pace, and then trying to understand it. It's all in legalese. So the additional cost of that, $50 an hour. I have yet to find an attorney that will work for me for $50 an hour. I've looked. I can't find one. And they cost several $100s an hour, and they don't charge you 1 hour to read 800 pages.
One of the concerns I have, and I've been here a long time, and I've seen these rules and regulations go on, and one of the biggest problems I have with them is this power grab by the bureaucracy to take more power to themselves and away from all of you small business guys. They want to control what you do even more. And unfortunately for small business, it doesn't level a playing field. It makes an unlevel playing field. Mr. Susie, would you like to comment on that from the standpoint of how you have to compete as a small business against the big guys with regards to these rules and regulations? It's costing you, which those guys can spread this cost out over a lot more revenue based on what a small business can do.
Correct, sir, without a doubt. And the margin in our industry are so minimal that when I ask friends of mine or other counterparts around the country why they chose to no longer be a family-owned business, the number one answer I get is there was no succession plan or the family was fighting. But close right behind it is we could not compete anymore. And that's why the big boys keep getting bigger, because companies like ours, we don't have an engineer. We don't have a legal department. We rely on our national associations to bring a lot of this forward to us, and it's just impossible to compete. And as I said, the large companies have a huge advantage over those of us that truly are small family-owned businesses.
Seems to be that you need a tiered system here. If you've got a small business, you need to have a different set of rules that you have to comply with versus the big guys. Otherwise, the little guys are never going to be able to compete.
Yes.
One of the things that concerns me is I've been here, again, a long time, and this particular administration continues to weaponize guidance. And it just drives me up the wall. The standpoint that you got laws and you got rules to implement the laws and you got guidance to clarify the rules. Guidance is not enforceable. It is not enforceable, period. And yet this administration continues to allow its bureaucracies to go out here and intimidate the business community by issuing guidance and then trying to go out and enforce it and threaten them with lawsuits if they don't comply with their guidance. Have you guys seen that kind of activity in your world, Mr. Burgos or Mr. Susie?
Yes, we have. And we don't mind when government comes in a cooperative way to educate us and be a resource. But when they automatically come in and are punitive or looking for fault within an organization that tries to do everything right, it's very frustrating.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. Appreciate your time here today and you're away from the business. I know it's a sacrifice. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.